Hello, hello. I really hope this is working. I'm going to try to get this pulled up on my computer so I know this is 100% working. And I will get into the MMA Monday. I apologize. I am a total newbie to this right now, so I'm trying to figure this out. Bear with me. I promise I will have this up here in a second. You know what I'm going to do? Give me 1 second. I'm going to pull it up on my phone just so I can make sure this works. Okay, we are live. I know it works. Let me get the chat pulled up, and we will get into the podcast. I do apologize. It was kind of weird because I've never live streamed on YouTube before. When I did a podcast previously, I would do it or I would pre-record it and then upload it. Or sometimes I have streamed before, but normally it's on Twitch. I've never actually streamed on here, so this is quite weird. Trying to pull it up though. Give me 2 seconds, guys, so I can actually talk to you guys. I don't have some BS. Okay, here we go. 2 seconds. I apologize. This is being a pain in the butt right now. Block. Don't let it happen. Don't let it happen. I'm trying to. Okay. I think we are all gravy in the Navy. What is up, guys? I am your host, Nicola Wood. I have the most Mom Reacts to UFC YouTube videos on YouTube. And today, you guys are back for another video. Well, actually, this isn't a video. This is a podcast. This is going to be the first rendition of MMA Mondays, which is kind of something I'm going to try to do. I may or may not change the name. I was messing around with a lot of different names, things like the illegal knee, stuff like that. I was just trying to make it funny, somehow tie like personality into it and make it funny. But I think MMA Mondays is probably just the best thing to do because essentially all this is going to be is every Monday after fights happen, I'm just going to come on here, be able to talk to you guys live, because I make a lot of videos, a lot of UFC content where it's just me talking about my thoughts and my opinions, but I never get to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions, so I thought that's why I'm going to do this. I have a chat, so you guys can tune in, and whenever I'm talking about things, we can share opinions, and I can talk to you guys, and be able to get other opinions, so it's just not me having a conversation with my camera, it's actually me having a conversation with you guys. But I have a few things I'm going to talk about here. Obviously, the fights that happened this past weekend are UFC 260, and there's a lot to talk about. I really don't know if I'm going to talk about the whole entire card because I didn't get to see the whole card. I saw the whole main card, starting out with the Malarkey fight. That was pretty insane. There's a lot of people going into that fight that were talking about the Malarkey actually being like the guy who's probably going to win, given the fact he was an underdog. If you're a betting person, you would have seen he was like a plus 100, plus 110. A lot of people said to bet on Malarkey. I didn't bet on him just because I never know. MMA can be a poop shoot sometimes when it comes to betting, so I just stayed away from that. Ended up knocking him out in like the first 30 seconds. I don't really remember what it was. It was like an overhand or a hook or something. And the second fight was the Miranda Maverick and was it Ronda Marcos, I think? Or Julian, I think it was Julian Robinson. I'm sorry, Miranda Marcos fought earlier in the night. That was a really good fight too. Robertson, I don't even know. She had a good round. Red hair girl had a good round, and but Maverick ended up coming through strong in the first and second. Actually, closed out the third round. I'm sorry, but closed out the second round pretty strong. And then into the O'Malley fight, Sean O'Malley versus Thomas Almeida, which is an insane fight. A lot of people say that O'Malley knocked out Almeida twice, and I kind of agree with that. That first one was a little weird. It was kind of annoying because it seemed like, well, it was annoying because the commentators kept saying that O'Malley looked hesitant. I don't think O'Malley was the least bit hesitant. If you saw how he opened the fight, he literally opened the fight with a knee stop and then threw a 1-2. And every time he threw those 1-2s, those were flipping fast. But I don't think he was being hesitant. I think it was more the fact that he had that walk-off KO against Eddie, and that was really the thing that kind of blew him up and got him like, I mean, the Contender Series was really kind of what blew him up, but when he got back on that rocket ship to start him, I guess, before the Cheeto fight, was the Eddie Wineland knockout, kind of what got him buzzing again, and he had that walk-off KO, and I think he was trying too hard in this fight to force the walk-off KO, which was super annoying because, like, you could tell after that first head kick when he dropped him and then threw that, I think it was an overhand or something, got him dropped up against the cage, and then he just, like, walked away. I mean, I think Mark Smith probably did the good thing there because it looked like Almeida, recovered pretty fast, got back up. But the whole entire fight, O'Malley was completely tuning up Almeida. I don't even think, Almeida maybe hit him with one or two good shots, hit him with like an overhand, and maybe when he got him down in that second round, when I think Sean like threw a kick or something and wiped out, which is another thing I'm going to talk about here after we get through these fights, is people wiping out, slipping on the cage a lot recently. But Sean wiped out, and then he hit him with like one or two good punches while he was on the ground. But it kind of reminded me of the Cheeto fight where like Sean just kind of lays there and tries to play the open guard game where he's just trying to kick you, but he's not really defending. It's just kind of like he's just doing like almost like he's just almost in jiu-jitsu with throwing like up kicks and stuff like that, which is a little weird. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Where was I going with that? No, but Almeida hit him with like two good strikes, and that was kind of scary because, like I said, it reminded me of the Cheeto fight, and that could be a potential opening for people to actually hit Sean when he's down there like that, or to be able to get some good shots off. Get some good. I can't talk. Get some good shots off on him, like while he's just laying there, because he never puts his hands up. He's just laying there with an open guard. I don't know. That made me nervous. And then going to the third round, he was pretty much tuning him up the whole time. And then the commentators kept saying again that O'Malley was just looking hesitant, like he was going to cruise his way to a decision, and how durable Almeida was. And literally, like right after they said that, they ate their own words, and O'Malley knocked out Almeida. It was pretty sweet. It was kind of annoying too, though, because he did the same thing once he actually dropped Almeida with that little short left hand. He just like walked over to him. I mean, he didn't like walk away like he thought the fight was over. He just walked over super slow. It's kind of like Michael Myers when he's got someone stabbed and they're just like crawling on the ground. He just walked over super slow, super patient, because he knew he was gonna flip and murder him. If you saw the video too of like when he hits him with that punch, the sound of it was flipping awful. His head smacks against the canvas. It was really bad. That one was probably unnecessary. I think maybe Mark Smith kind of messed up on that, but I don't blame him because the first time Almeida got dropped, he recovered pretty well. I just don't think he knew the extent of how bad Almeida was hurt. I think Almeida was the only one that knew how bad he was hurt. But I think that was a great fight. What's next for Sean? I really don't know. Dominic Cruz is saying he wants to fight Sean next. I think that would be a great fight for Sean. I don't think for Dominic that's a great fight, especially when Dominic like only beat Casey Kenny with a split decision. And Casey Kenny is not a pushover either. I'm not saying Casey Kenny is a bad fighter. He's actually very good. Trains with Sean too. He's a very good fighter. Same thing with Kyler Phillips. They're both tough guys. I don't know why I was talking about Kyler Phillips other than he trains with Sean, but Casey's a tough guy. But I don't think for someone like for Dominic Cruz, who's a former WC champion, former UFC champion, two-time UFC champion, for the amount of title defense he's had and everything, and as decorated as a career and legend that Dominic Cruz is, I don't know if I want to see him fight Sean, because I think the sport has kind of evolved past Dominic Cruz. I think maybe 5 years ago, someone with Dominic Cruz's movement and a style was really good. But I think nowadays, a lot of people are kind of, the sport's evolved to the point where that style is not as effective as it used to be, because there's all kinds of people with weird style. I mean, you got people like Corey Sandhagen now, you got TJ Dillashaw. There's a bunch of people that have that weird, awkward kind of style. Even Sean kind of has a weird, awkward style. Excuse me. Sean likes to throw like a lot of linear strikes. You never really see Sean throwing too many hooks. It's a lot of teep kicks up the middle. Just a lot of linear strikes, 1-2s, things like that, keeping you at range, keeping you away. And I just don't think that Dominic Cruz is probably going to be as effective as he once was maybe 5 years ago. I don't think Dominic Cruz should really even be. I think he's fine with doing his commentary thing. He probably makes good money doing that, and he does a good job at it. I just don't really want to see Dominic Cruz fighting again, because he lost to Cejudo, and Cejudo's pretty good, so I can't really take anything away from him for that. But I don't see him winning a belt. Like, he's not going to be at the top of the division again and murking those guys. And maybe he gets to the top 5, but if he gets to the top, he's never going to win the belt again, I don't think. So I don't like that fight for Dominic. I just think O'Malley's probably going to piece him up. O'Malley will probably knock him out, but it'll be good for O'Malley. It'll be a good name and a good knockout to add to his resume. And then moving on to the second fight, or the co-main event, which was the Woodley and Luque fight. For as long as that fight lasted, the whole round. It was an insane fight. I will give it to Woodley, though. I was dogging on Woodley going into that fight. I was thinking that Woodley was honestly just going to be like really passive. I don't think I think he was probably just going to go out there and get overwhelmed by Luque's pressure, and Luque was just going to completely smother him. And Woodley actually kind of proved me wrong for the time that the fight was going in his favor. He came out swinging, he came out hard, which is not like Woodley. The Woodley we've seen in the past, 3 fights before that. He literally threw like, I forget how many total punches. I want to say it was like, out of 3 fights, he threw a total of 300 punches, which is absurd because Max Holloway threw double that in one fight. But I mean, that's also Max Holloway. But to throw 300 total punches in 3 fights is absolutely absurd. But I mean, he definitely came out swinging this fight. But I think he was a little too overzealous, and I think that's repaid. I don't know. I just think that Woodley's definitely another guy who's way past, like, the sport's definitely evolved past him, because if you really think about Woodley is, like, in terms of complete well-roundedness and overall, like, well-roundedness, Woodley's not very well-rounded in that sense. He has very good wrestling, but I wouldn't say overall his grappling is well-rounded. He has good, like, pressure wrestling where he can get you down, but it's not like Kamaru Usman completely out-grappled same thing with Colby Covington. Colby Covington and Usman both completely out-grappled Woodley, and it wasn't even close. Like, Woodley couldn't even hold his own against both those guys. And even striking as well, Woodley doesn't have like an insane striking. He did put up a good performance against Darren Till, and I will give him props for that, because someone like Darren Till, who's a phenomenal striker, to be able to hang in there with him and not get smoked was pretty sweet. But Woodley just does this thing where he just sits there, waits for the big overhand right, and then just resets. He doesn't really do anything crazy. It's not like he throws insane combos and then goes to the legs. He'll throw like a 1, 2, 3, go to the legs. Like, he never does anything like that. He just sits there. He waits. Overhand. Okay, reset. Maybe drive against the cage. Overhand. Okay, reset. Like, it's a very elementary style, I guess, nowadays. In today's I guess modern state of the sport, it's just way too evolved. I just don't think that Woodley is probably going to be successful in the UFC anymore if he stays with the UFC. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets cut. Honestly, I think Woodley is on his way to Bellator right now, or the PFL, whoever's just going to offer him the money to have him. Which is funny because Bellator is like literally all their fighters are just washed up UFC fighters. So I wouldn't be surprised if Woodley went there, but I don't know. Maybe they're running out of money to give these guys. So it wouldn't be surprising maybe if he went to the PFL or something. That'd be good for him being in the welterweight division. Him and Roy McDonald. There might even be some other guys from the UFC that are in that welterweight PFL season. I don't know, but that fight. I think Luque looked really good. I mean, Luque came back, dropped Woodley, or didn't really drop. Well, he did. I don't even remember. Did he? He put him on stanky legs a lot, and then locked up that Brabal choke. That Brabal choke was slick. And then getting into the main event. The main event was absolutely insane. I predicted that Francis was gonna knock out Stipe, but to be honest, to my heart, I think I really wanted Stipe to win just because I like Stipe as a person. He's a great guy, a great fighter. But also, I mean, Francis' story, you can't, like, if you listen to the Joe Rogan podcast where he talks about his story, like everything he went through, trying to escape Africa, trying to get to Europe and try to pretty much chase his dream, and everything he had to go through in between just in order to make it happen, just to get there, just to get to Europe before he even really got, like, into fighting, before he got into the UFC, things like that. Like, everyone knows that, like, being able to be a professional athlete, get to the UFC, being a fighter is so flipping hard, the journey that a fighter takes. Imagine going through all the things that Francis went through in order just to even get his dream started. Is absolutely insane. And I think if you hear that story, even doesn't matter what kind of fan you are, if you're a Stipe fan, Francis fan, there's absolutely no way you could hate Francis after hearing that. And I'm pretty happy for him. I think it's really like a icing on the cake for his life and his story. I think you could really make a movie out of it. But that fight was absolutely insane. I think Francis looked phenomenal. I said in my predictions video that skillfully, technically, Stipe is levels above Francis, and they're in completely different universes. There was even a lot of people in one of my videos that when I was doing like one of the reactions to Francis' knockouts, there was people saying that Francis has shown no signs of improvements in any of his recent fights, where he's just murked people in whatever, like the first 60 seconds, wherever the fight goes. And yes, you didn't really see any improvement in those fights, but you also didn't get to see much because Francis was literally in those fights for a total of like 2 minutes out of all 4 of those fights, or all 3 of those fights, whatever those were. So you can't really see any signs of improvement. So I think it's not really fair to say that Francis didn't improve, but I think he just didn't feel the need to show all of his tools. And I think this fight he really had to bring out all of his tools, and you saw that. I mean, he looked very patient. I think he was kind of getting tired, though, because he was throwing more combinations, I guess, and moving, sticking and moving a lot more, which he's not really a stick and move and throw combinations kind of guy. He's just kind of like a freight train that just beelines at you. But he didn't do that this fight. He was very measured. He was very sharp. Even like I was saying, Stipe's big thing would be if he can somehow, when Francis starts unloading, duck under, just go for the takedown. That didn't even work. That was like the surefire way for Stipe to really kind of execute his game plan, enforce his game plan, or whatever his game plan was. I was thinking that's what his game plan was, and it looked like that's what his game plan was there for a second, but I think Francis did a good job shutting it down. It could have been also, too, the fact that Francis was 30 pounds heavier. Trying to take down a dude that's 30 pounds heavier than you, and then getting your takedown stuffed by a dude that's 30 pounds heavier than you, definitely plays a role. But I think overall, I mean, the improvements in Francis' wrestling were pretty insane. Like, as soon as he sprawled, he spun around the other side, started throwing those punches to the side of Stipe's head, like from behind. He was doing a good job of that. Like, you could tell he was fluid, he was moving, and he definitely had some improvements in his grappling and his takedown defense. And then on the feet, like I said, he was way more measured. He was way more calculated. He wasn't trying to rush anything. He was letting his shots come to him. He was picking his shots, and he looked great. I mean, if you saw the shot that actually dropped, the one that really put Stipe away, like he dropped him like 3 times, but the one where he bent back on his leg, it was like it was right after he dropped Stipe up against the fence, and then Stipe got up and started circling out, and Francis was rushing in thinking he was going to go for the kill, and that's when Stipe came in, and he actually hurt Francis. If you watch it back in slow motion, he like drops in range and hits him with a straight shot, which is one of those things I was talking about in the prediction video, is when Francis is coming in, cut him off with a straight shot, and that's what Stipe tried to do, and he rocked Francis, but Francis flipping ate that like a biscuit and literally just fired right back at him. If you saw the shot that he fired right back at him, it was like, it didn't even look like his most powerful shot. The fact that that's what dropped Stipe versus that big overhand that Francis hit Stipe with in the first round, or that leg kick that or that head kick, I'm sorry, that Francis hit Stipe with, out of all those things, that was probably the least powerful shot, but I think it was the culmination of all those strikes being landed on Stipe's head that yielded those results, and I think that's why that's what dropped Stipe. But that was absolutely insane. That was kind of hard to watch almost, because literally as soon as Stipe went down, when his leg went back, even the flipping 3 times before that he got dropped, you knew as soon as he went down that one time when he went crumbling like a flipping sack of potatoes, you knew it was it. And that last hit, when he hits him and his whole body just kind of rocks. His whole body just rocks and just kind of like starfishes out and like he was dead. It just looked brutal. It was hard to watch. But I mean, Francis, he looked phenomenal. I think he showed a lot of signs of improvement. I think it was just because he didn't have to bring, like I said, those tools out for those other fights. And why should you? Especially if you can just surprise people, let people think you're not that good, and then you go out there and really show off your full arsenal, full skill set. I think he looked great. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think of these fights. I want to get this chat going. If you guys have any opinions or what you thought of these fights, I want to get some. That was the whole idea of doing this. I just want to hear your guys' opinions, see what you guys think. In terms of what's next, though, for Francis, a lot of people are talking about either the John Jones fight, the Derek Lewis fight, things like that. Like that should be the next fight for Francis, which I agree with. But we need to talk about the fact that Francis and Stipe are 1-1. Just because, I mean, Stipe beat Francis the first time. Everybody's talking about the rematch. But then Francis beat Stipe, and then no one's talking about giving him a rematch. But both 1-1. They both won one fight. So you got to do the trilogy. I mean, you did the same thing with the Conor and Poirier fight. Conor knocked out Poirier first fight. Poirier knocks out Conor the second fight. Now we're talking about a rematch. Stipe, we didn't knock out Francis the first fight, but completely shut him out the first fight. And then they give Francis the rematch when he got completely shut out. I mean, rightfully so, because he went on a flipping tear. But Stipe gets knocked out, and everyone's like, we're moving on. We're start talking about John Jones. We're gonna start talking about Derek Lewis and everything. I don't know. I feel like you need to at least give Stipe the respect, and I feel like the UFC has not been giving Stipe any respect in all reality in terms of how, I mean, like when DC, I was just talking to my dad earlier about how when DC knocked out Stipe, they didn't give Stipe the immediate rematch when he was literally he had the most title defenses. He was at, even before the trilogy with DC, after the first fight, or before the first fight, he was considered the greatest heavyweight of all time. After he beat Francis, had the record for consecutive title defenses and all, and considering the people he's beat, everyone was saying he was the GOAT, and then he gets beat by DC, and they skip past him, like, all right, we're moving past him, we're not going to give him the rematch. And then he comes back, and they finally get the flipping trilogy, or the sequel fight, like a year later, and he knocks out DC with the liver shot. And then they do the rematch, like the immediate, or I don't remember what it was. It was in August. So whenever it was, however many months, years, whatever, after, it wasn't years, but then they do that for DC. They give DC the rematch. And that was something they were trying to push hard because DC wanted the rematch, but they were saying Stipe didn't want to do it because it was eye or whatever. But they were really pushing that rematch, and then again Stipe loses this fight, and now they're just all like, it's 1-1, and now they skip past him. Now, do I think that Stipe should probably fight right away after this? No. I think when you get hit in the head like that, getting hit in the head, period, isn't getting good for your brain at all. But getting hit in the head like that, the way that Francis hit Stipe in the head, your brain's really not supposed to take that, especially when you're the guy that's punching you has equivalent force to what is a Ford Voyager or something. I don't know. It's some sort of Ford. It's the equivalent of that car going full speed. If you were to stick your head out at that car going full speed, he took like 5 of those shots. So he got hit in the head like 5 times by a flipping Ford going full speed. I wouldn't fight at all for the rest of the year, even though it's only like March, April. If I'm Stipe, I'm probably chilling. He's got a son on the way. I would just be chilling. You got plenty of money. I would let that brain heal. I would work. I would just spend time with your family, focus on getting better, and focus on improving. Focus on where you can find holes in Francis' game, beat him again. But in the meantime, if you're Francis, I think Francis needs to. I think the fight, if you're Francis, is John Jones because that's the biggest money fight. Now it's all dependent on whether or not Dana's going to bring out the checkbook and pay John Jones because that's what John's saying is holding that fight back from happening. But if I'm a John Jones fan, which I am, I don't know if I like that fight for John because it's the same thing I said with the Stipe fight. Skillfully, technically, John Jones has way too many weapons. He's a gazillion times better. Flipping Francis is on Venus and John Jones is out in 3 different universes that way on Kepler 22. They're not even in the same. They're nowhere near each other. They're light years away in terms of skill. But the fact that flipping Francis has the power of a car going full speed when he punches you, it's just one punch, and it's really hard to avoid one punch over the course of 25 minutes. And Francis showed in the Stipe fight, mind you, it only went 2 rounds out of the 5, but he showed he can carry that power. It's not like he gassed right away. He was getting tired. I don't want to say he was getting tired, but it looked like he was. I'm sorry, I hit that mic. It might have been loud. He looked like he was breathing out of his mic a little bit, or I'm mixing up my words. And I hit my mic and I say my mic. He was breathing out of his mouth pretty heavy. And but I can't really say he was tired because he didn't slow down really at all. He was just being patient the whole fight. I think that Francis showed that if he keeps that pace, if he stays patient, picks his shot, he can keep his power over the course of at least 2 rounds, maybe 3, however long he can keep it. He showed that he can keep it though past the first round, which is huge, and I think that's scary if you're John Jones. I think it all depends on whether or not John Jones can keep Francis at range because Stipe actually was on the shorter end in terms of the reach. Francis had the reach on Stipe, and I think Francis had the reach on just about everybody he's faced, but John Jones actually, I think Francis only has like an 82-inch reach, and John Jones has an 84-inch reach, so that could pose some problems for Francis because John is going to be able to hit Francis where Francis can't hit John, and if John can maintain that range the whole time, which is very hard, especially someone like Francis who's going to come lunging in with overhands and God knows whatever else, if John can keep Francis at that 2-inch range where Francis can't hit him, I think John can be very effective. He starts throwing those knee stomps, those kicks to the knee, those side kicks to the knee, oblique kicks up the middle, teep kicks up the middle, and keeping Francis at range and getting him tired, getting him frustrated, and then somehow I think John has every tool in the world to pick Francis apart, but it's all dependent on whether John can keep Francis at that range and not get hit with that punch because Francis, it's just insane. It's one punch, and I don't know who's going to beat Francis other than maybe if him and Derek Lewis, or if somehow somebody with real power, Derek Lewis or whoever else. The only reason I'm saying Derek Lewis is because he's only the other guy besides Francis that has absurd, scary knockout power like that, where they can just somehow get into a brawl and you get the puncher's chance. Shout out Bruce Buffer, his whiskey, it's puncher's chance. But if you can someone can just somehow get Francis in a brawl where they can just beat him to the punch and knock him out. That's how you're gonna beat Francis. You're not gonna probably see Francis get knocked out any other way than that. I mean, unless you have some dude that's literally just built bigger than Francis that has to cut down to 265 and is an absurd kickboxer that has like really good kickboxing, really good wrestling, and insane power as well. That's just as big to eat his punches and be able to be as strong as him and be as forceful as him and be more skilled. I don't know if you're going to run into too many people that are going to beat Francis. The only way you're going to probably see Francis get beat on this title reign is if somehow Stipe makes the adjustment or somebody knocks him out. And I don't even know if, to be completely honest, I don't think Stipe is going to make the adjustment because I even predicted Stipe to lose this fight just because of the sheer fact that Francis just hasn't landed that one punch. So I don't know. I think that's a bad fight for John, but I'm not going to tell. I mean, everybody knows that as one of those fighters, like, you're not afraid. You're not going to turn down a challenge like that, especially when that's all your life is. Your whole job is facing challenges and putting bigger challenges in front of you. And just, I don't know, it's all about climbing to the next challenge and the next peak. And I think for someone like John, he's not going to turn that down. It's all just dependent on whether he can get the payday. Someone's saying in the chat, though, if we get someone with movement, I think that's true. Someone that can move around. Stipe has very good movement. He has very good boxing, very slick boxing. But I just think that it's just one of those things that I think you got to have the size too in order to be able to take the punch. And he did take the punch. I think Stipe did a really good job of taking those punches, especially that overhand. Took a lot of those punches like a champ, but I think it was the culmination of those punches that kind of just weathered down the chin of Stipe. And I think you got to have someone that can be able to take those shots. That's big and powerful, move around, and just has the technical ability. And it's so hard to get somebody that has all those things, because it's so hard to get somebody in general that is a very well-rounded striker, and then somebody who's not a well-rounded striker, a well-rounded fighter, all around well-rounded, has all the tools, all the abilities, and then as a freak athlete has the body to go with it, and then on top of that has the mindset. Because in fighting, there's so many different things. Like in other sports like basketball or football, like basketball, you can get away with just being freakishly big. You see a lot of those people that are like 7'6", like Taco Fall. There's a lot of people, Yao Ming, like somebody like Yao Ming, if you can remotely shoot a basketball and make a layup, you're going to make it to the NBA just based off your size and frame, because nobody's going to be able to stop you just based off your size. Same thing with like other sports like track. If you're just ridiculously fast, there's a good chance you can go really far if you're just naturally ridiculously fast. If you have Usain Bolt speed, there's a good chance you can really go far in that sport. Fighting's one of those things where you have to have all those things if you really want to be at the top level. You have to have someone that has the mind, you have to have someone that has the physical abilities, the speed, the size, the power, everything, the chin to be able to take shots, the power to be able to deliver shots, the stamina, the cardio, everything. You have to have all those things, and on top of it, you have to have the fighting skill, the actual skill of fighting. And that's one of all these things, like two of the things you just have to have. You just have to be born with the body, and you have to be born with the mind. You can develop the mind, but I think you also kind of have to be born with that mindset. Like you can't develop somebody to have Justin Gaethje's mindset going into a fight the same way you can't develop somebody to have a frame like Francis Ngannou. Yes, if you put someone on steroids and you get a bodybuilder and things like that, but you're not going to have the absurd knockout power, and you're not going to get somebody that has the speed of Sean. You can't train somebody to have the exact speed of Sean O'Malley. But you can train people to have fighting skills, but if you don't have the mind and the body to go with the skills, it means nothing. So that's why, I don't know. I think that's why you're going to need somebody that has the whole package to be able to beat Francis. I think Stipe has the technical ability. I think he has the mindset, but I think Francis overall is just, his physical abilities are too much to where physically he's just too much he can put more on Stipe that Stipe can't take. As Stipe took the shots, but I think over time, like I said, you saw the culmination. And that's what it was. But yeah, movement, skill, and balls. I think that's really what it is. Balls is a good way to put in, pretty much talk about like the mind, like the mental aspect. You do, because you got to think, going into a fight with flipping Francis Ngannou, knowing what you're getting yourself into, it has to be stressful in and of itself. That's got to be up there with flipping God knows whatever else. Going into war, it's probably the same thing. I mean, going into war is a little bit different because you're getting shot at. You got bombs and everything to worry about, but you're getting punched in the head by a dude who's really good at punching people in the head, and a dude that has he could easily literally kill you with his bare hands. I think that's pretty scary, knowing you're willingly signing up for something like that. I don't know. I think, all in all, I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do next, what the post-UFC 260 UFC matchups are going to look like. I think they're going to be interesting. I think there's a lot of good matchups that come out of this, especially Sean, if he were to get Dominic Cruz. It's a ranked opponent. Dominic's ranked like number 11, number 12, so he can literally jump into almost a top 10, where Sean's not even ranked right now. Same thing with the Woodley-Luque fight. I think it's good for Luque, because Luque is going to jump into the top 10, maybe the top 5 with this fight, and he's going to get closer to title contention. I think Luque is a very legit contender. I think it's hard for Luque to find fights, because I think people know how good Luque is. And then Woodley, same thing with Woodley. I think Woodley's not same thing with Woodley. I think Woodley's done. I think Woodley's probably going to get cut by the UFC. UFC's been cutting a lot of people as of recently, and especially big-name guys. It's just because they're washed up and they're on big contracts. UFC pays them well because their names are people that are former champs, or they've just been around, their company guys. And I think the UFC's starting to move past that. I think they're just tired of paying these people a lot of money. So I think Woodley's going to be one of those guys, especially on a 4-fight skid. He hasn't won since 2018. Since September 2018, when he choked out Darren Till. That was the last time he won. And we're in March of 2021. Woodley's, I'd bet every last dollar in my bank account that Woodley does not probably make it back to the UFC at the end of the beginning. Woodley's not going to be here at the end of 2021. That's my prediction. And then Francis, I think probably the next fight for him is going to be John Jones, just because I think that's a money fight. And I think if the UFC does that in July, like for International Fight Week, they do that for the Poirier and McGregor, that's going to be July 10th, Poirier McGregor 3. If they were to somehow throw that on the Francis and John Jones for International Fight Week, that right there is the biggest selling pay-per-view event of all time. Now, it's just how you're going to divide that pay-per-view up between those 4 guys is probably impossible, so that probably won't happen. But I think that might be the next fight, Francis versus John. If you're Stipe, I'm resting up. I'm taking probably the rest of this year off, and I'm going to be looking for a top contender fight someone like flipping Curtis Blades, because Curtis Blades, they're both coming off a loss. It's literally like number 1 and number 3. I think that's a great fight because if Curtis wins, it puts Curtis right back in title contention. And if Stipe wins, I mean, it's even though Curtis is ranked number 3 and he's coming off a loss, beating Curtis Blades is, I mean, a nice feather in your cap. And I don't know. I just think either way, it's a win-win for either of those guys. How do I feel about the Aljamain and Peter Yan fight? I think honestly, I don't know. I think I think it's weird. I think it's how you view it. I think I see both sides because I definitely see why people are dogging on Aljamain, just because Aljamain was flexing. He has been taking pictures with a belt. He was going to after parties. Like, he has been at clubs and places walking around with the belt. And I think that's a little bit tacky. I think that's a little bit weird, especially when you didn't beat the guy. Like, you didn't actually finish the guy. You didn't beat him in a decision. You didn't knock him out. You didn't submit him. You just won the belt based off unfortunate events. Now, those unfortunate events are the error of the champion, and the champion should be the guy. I mean, they explained the rules in before the fight, and he's been in he's 16-1, 15. I don't know or what exactly Peter Yan's record is, but he has he has a good amount of fights, enough to know the rules. And you're a world champion in the highest level of the sport, the biggest organization in the sport. You got to know the rules, and especially if your own corner is telling you to knee the guy, I think that falls on them. Now, I think the right thing to do, I think in retrospect, the right thing to do probably was just call it as a no contest, but I think you can't call it as a no contest simply because it was an illegal strike that made the fight discontinue. It was one fighter. Technically, I guess you could say cheating because he did something he's not supposed to do that completely incapacitated his opponent. And anybody that says that Aljamain was faking that knee has never been hit in the knee in the head, kicked in the head, anything in general like that. Because if you're getting hit by a dude when you're sitting still, just completely sitting still on the ground, by a professional MMA fighter that has the power, speed, and technique of a professional MMA fighter, sitting there, it's literally a sitting target, and you just get kneed in the head, yes, you're flipping hurt, you're probably concussed, and there's probably a good chance you can't fight. So, yes, Aljamain got the belt based off that, and I think that's why it couldn't be a no contest. All in all, I just think the best thing to do is just do the rematch, and if you're Aljamain, just don't take pictures with the belt. Don't go out with the belt. Literally just leave the belt somewhere that you don't pick it up, you don't grab it. Do whatever the UFC tells you to do. If you have to do whatever media that for being the champ, do it just because you're going to make money, you're going to make champions money, and it's what the UFC is telling you to do. But don't try to act like you're the champ, I guess. I don't know. I think it's a dicey situation because Aljamain wouldn't be in this situation for people to be hating on him. He wouldn't have the belt if it weren't for the error of Peter Yan. So, I don't know. It's a tough situation. It's a slippery slope. Do I think Aljo wins the second time? I think it's tough because I think Aljo looked good going into like the beginning part of that fight. I mean, he was setting a pace, and I think his problem was he was pacing himself. He was setting too strong of a pace. I mean, it's tough to say though because maybe Yan was just trying to draw the I guess cardio out of Yan or Aljamain just because he knew how fast he was going, how hard he was going. I think if Aljamain can pick his shots, similar to how Francis made the adjustment with Stipe, if he can somehow pick his shots but keep a constant pace where he's constantly looking for openings and he's not going all out and he's not being too passive, where he's just in your face, where he's staying away, he has good defense, and he's always on the offensive in a way where he's just picking his shots, opening his shots, I think he could beat him. I think Aljamain, actually, you talking about this actually kind of brings me back to a point I was talking about earlier. He was talking about Aljamain was actually saying that a lot of the reason his takedowns weren't working is because the cage was too slippery, and that's what I was talking about earlier with the Sean O'Malley fight when he wiped out a lot throwing those kicks. That could be an issue. I think maybe if somehow they correct the fact that the cage is a little too slippery with the cleaning protocols in between fights, Which I don't understand why they're cleaning the octagon in between fights anyways. All these guys are COVID tested a gazillion times before they even get to fight night, so the fact that you're cleaning the cage in between fights is kind of dumb because these dudes are literally going to be on top of each other, punching, elbowing, kneeing each other, bleeding on each other. So I don't think really cleaning the cage is going to do anything. They need to figure out something, though, because that's why Aljo was saying he can't land his takedowns, and if Aljo can land his takedowns, I think that's a different ballgame for Petr Yan, because Aljo grappling is an absolute nightmare. Like, you don't want to be on the ground with Aljamain Sterling. So I think it all depends on whether or not, if Aljo makes the adjustments where he's not flipping going all out and he's picking his shots, he could win. And if he can get Petr to the ground, he could very well win. But if the fight goes the way it went last time, because the way it was going last time, Petr was going to win. And if it goes that way again, Peter's probably going to win. I think watching that fight, I think it was clear that, I don't want to say it was clear, but I think it was evident that there was strong evidence that maybe Petr Yan was the better fighter. And I think, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting the second time around. I can't really say. Personally, if I had to bet on it, I'm going to say that Peter's probably going to knock out Aljo the second time around, just because how mad, especially given the fact the dude's Russian, he's Serbian, he's from like one of the toughest places in the world, and you know how mad that dude is, especially the implications that it has. I mean, in terms of life-changing money, I don't know what kind of financial situation Petr Yan was in before, but I think being a champion and being Serbian or wherever he's from, the money that you make is definitely life-changing, especially for your family. And I think the implications of him being champion are going to motivate him more because it does more for him and his family versus someone like Aljo, who has Aljo just I don't know. I don't know. I'm drawing all kinds of different things now. But I think in terms of motivation and hunger, I think Peter's going to be more hungry. He's going to be more motivated because he had the belt and he got it taken away under unfortunate circumstances. And the dude's flipping Serbian. I mean, that's flipping terrifying. I don't know. I think if I'm a betting man, I'm saying Aljo's probably gonna lose the second time around. But that's just my opinion. I don't know. It'll be interesting. They need to get that fight scheduled though, because I hope that's not another thing like when I was talking about with the Stipe and Francis, where they're just avoiding doing rematches. I think because I think Aljo was trying to get a fight with Henry Cejudo and doing some other things. I don't know. We'll have to see. But yeah, that's how I see that playing out. I think I'm gonna wrap this up though, guys. This was kind of fast. This was like really my first time doing a podcast in 3 years. Because like I said, I used to do a podcast like a couple years ago, and I really just kind of got bored with that, and I just kind of wanted to make YouTube videos because I feel like that's more how I can. I don't know. I feel like that was more my avenue. But I'm gonna start doing this more often, especially if we have like really good pay-per-views, really good fights. I may try to do it every week after every UFC event. But I'm definitely going to be doing this after every single pay-per-view. I hope you guys did enjoy. Like I said, I do YouTube videos. I do a lot of other YouTube videos. So if you're a new viewer, go ahead and check out some of my YouTube videos. I can do podcasts and do YouTube. So get you a man that can do it both. And subscribe. And like, comment, subscribe. Till next time, I will catch you guys later. I got to figure out how to flip and turn this thing off.